Tonight, is Britain bouncing back?
I really hope that this is the start of something really big, that the tide's turned and that lots of British jobs will be coming back.
But with manufacturing making a comeback, are we up to the job?
As a country, we need to develop more engineering graduates because the opportunities in this industry are great. This, in some ways, is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, so we need to make the most of it.
Good evening and welcome to the Tonight programme. Over the past 30 years, more and more UK companies have taken their business overseas, attracted by lower labour costs in countries like China. But with those costs now starting to rise and confidence at home increasing, British companies are beginning to return, bringing with them jobs and investment. In tonight's programme, Laura Kunsberg examines whether Britain really is back in business.
China, one of the world's fastest growing economies. A decade ago, cushion manufacturer Tony Caldera moved the bulk of his production here, closing one of his UK factories at the cost of 100 jobs. Like many others, he'd been lured to China by lower labour costs and an eager workforce. 10 years on, Tony's back, but for a very different reason. This time, he's downsizing his China operation and moving production back to the UK.
It was absolutely heartbreaking about 10 years ago. I had to close one of the factories because, quite frankly, we couldn't compete with the Chinese. So I had a very simple choice. It really was China or bust.
Today, all that's changed. Tony's visiting his once busy factory in East China to finalise its sale.
We had found the holy grail in many ways. We had a British-inspired product at Chinese prices. So all the world's retailers came to China in the droves. They thought they'd found exactly what they were looking for.
And for a while they had, but those low prices couldn't last forever.
Chinese labour costs have been rising significantly. It cost me 5 times more to hire the people that we can see here compared to what it did in 2003. At its peak, the factory was absolutely flying. We had nearly 200 staff here, could sometimes make 40 or 50,000 cushions in a week. We had a business that was really going places.
But now that same factory is running at less than half its capacity. Parts of it are completely empty. Meanwhile, back at Tony's cushion factory in Liverpool, the mood is very different. News he's bringing business back is a welcome guarantee of work for the future.
At the end of the day, it's good for us that all the jobs and the work are coming back here. Yeah, and it's good news for us.
Really good.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel more secure because, like in the past, we've all lost jobs.
Yeah.
Because they've gone abroad. And now they're coming back.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's really taking off now. They like our sewing anyway, don't they?
Shipping costs had gone up, duty rates had changed, lots of different small factors. And when we did the numbers, we were stunned. And a lot of the products that we actually were making in China, we found that we could make for just the same price in the UK. Now, of course, for us, this was a eureka moment. It's like, hooray, the tide has finally turned.
Yeah, but if it's made in England, Carol, it's quality.
It's
quality.
Quality first.
So this could be one of the choices that we have. It's very close to the old factory.
Back in China, Tony is taking a look at a much smaller factory, around a quarter of the size of his previous one here.
And also they have the offices there. We need to make some showrooms and some other things, so we will need to do some work. Already have the power supply, so plenty of natural light. Maybe okay.
It's a bittersweet moment.
Unfortunately, we're having to make a smaller business now in the future. It does hurt a little bit, especially because some of my good Chinese staff have had to lose their jobs. But of course, I'm more happy that some of the jobs are going back home to the UK. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
And it seems Tony is not alone. Rising costs in countries like China and an increased demand for British products is fueling what looks like a manufacturing revival here in the UK, with a growing number of British manufacturers bringing business and jobs back from overseas. It's a trend known as reshoring, and experts say it's gathering pace.
How significant is the trend of reshoring, and how much difference will it make to the economy, do you think?
I'm very sure the trend is happening. And I think it does make a difference to the economy because it's bringing confidence back to UK manufacturing that we can make product here for the right price, but more importantly, perhaps with the right quality and the right service that surrounds that product to deliver excellent value for customers at a price that they are willing and able to pay.
It's estimated this trend could create thousands of jobs over the next few years. But it's a far cry from the days when Britain was known as the workshop of the world.
Billions more arrives in our docks and airports every month than we send to sell abroad in foreign countries. We import far more than we export. Britain's manufacturers have got a long way to go to catch up.
Back in the 1960s, manufacturing accounted for almost a third of our whole economy and employed around 9 million people. But more competition from overseas, years of industrial action and several recessions led to devastating decline.
Already in the first 10 months of this year, Britain lost 2,370,000 working days through strikes.
And in a sense, manufacturing itself slowly but surely went out of fashion.
I think people had forgotten that manufacturing was important in creating jobs, goods, productivity and exports. And I think the financial crisis brought it home because when the financial services sector in particular really dropped, I think government and others started to look around to say, well, what part of our industrial base now will start to generate exports and employment? And the answer came, manufacturing is one of the areas that should be stronger than it currently is.
Shipbuilding, once one of Britain's biggest industries. In its heyday, Swan Hunter in Newcastle employed thousands of people. But by 2008, its towering cranes had been dismantled or sold off for scrap. The only reminder of its glory days now, the memories of the people who lived and worked there.
They came in and they had a crane there and they used to lift the steel off the flat-bedded railway trucks and into the yard.
Well, it was a really major industry in the UK, and as far as the North East is concerned, we were building something like 1/5 of the world's ships. 100 years ago, UK was building 3/5. So it's been a huge employer for the best part of 100 years.
Oh, you'd have 200-300 men on a ship, no problem, sometimes 500 when it was really starting to buzz, when it was finishing off. Sometimes we were practically tripping over each other. That was that, you know, to get the work done on time.
Well, the boom times really lasted until about the 1960s, and the problem then was competition, particularly from Japan in the Far East. And the Japanese, they could build the ships, I'm afraid, a bit more cheaply, a bit more quickly. And that was really the beginning of a fairly gradual rundown of the industry over perhaps the next 20, 30 years or so.
And the day it closed, I'll never forget, I thought it was the end of the world. Because you think, what am I going to do now? I was very angry with the way things were sold off. Everything went. There was just the cranes, the drag chains, the facilities for building ships, everything went.
Those days of old heavy industries may well be gone forever. But the current revival's built around smaller grassroots companies choosing to manufacture in the UK. Footwear designers Jan and Sarah were planning to make their new trainers in China, but changed their minds and decided to go for Northampton instead.
There's some fundamental differences between manufacturing in China and manufacturing in Britain. And one of the big advantages for us is to be able to make small quantities of exclusive products.
We can do as small as 10 to 50 pairs for a customer, which means we're more accessible and there's less cost implication for us as a start-up business and also for the retailer purchasing from us.
One of the big advantages we've got making in Britain is that we can do things quicker. So if suddenly a particular colour becomes very fashionable, we'll be able to do that a lot faster. Our production time in the factory's faster, and we then don't have the 4 to 6 week shipping and importing time.
For 7 years, these paper cups were made exclusively in China. But having a long-distance supply chain stopped making sense. Now much of the production has been moved back to Britain, to Clitheroe in Lancashire.
In manufacturing cups in China, it takes 8 to 10 weeks to get the cups from China to here. In bringing the production to the UK, we can now make cups in 72 hours, which we would never have been able to do from China. We started production 2 years ago, making 10,000 cups a week with one machine. Now we're up to 7 machines and make somewhere around 250,000 cups a month. Having a UK manufacturing plant has enabled us to penetrate the European market, which is proving to be a huge growth market for us.
For entrepreneur Andrew, who makes specialist travel accessories, manufacturing overseas nearly sunk his business. He invested a lot of money in China making a new product, but the goods came back faulty.
It was a nightmare. We received over £250,000 worth of stock from China that was totally shoddy, it was faulty. So we'd agreed a specification and we'd signed off a good quality sample, and the products that were sent just were nowhere near good enough. It was such a serious situation, and we very, very nearly went bust as a result of it.
Business is now on the up. Andrew is backing Britain.
We've decided upon a simple principle, and that's that if we can't manufacture the product in Britain, then we just won't manufacture it at all.
But despite this feel-good factor among some smaller and medium-sized companies, it's still early days. In recent decades, the number of manufacturing jobs has plummeted from 9 million to 2.5.
Will the revival in some parts of manufacturing ever provide the same kinds of numbers of jobs that manufacturing used to in this country?
I suspect not. I mean, I think we won't get back to 9 million manufacturing jobs again. And I think there's the main factor driving that is we are much more productive. Manufacturing is using technology, it's using automation. It's much more productive than it was. That probably won't change. So hopefully our numbers employed in manufacturing do go up as manufacturing continues its bounce back, but it won't get to that sheer volume of a labour force that we had in the 60s and 70s.
But it's not just manufacturers bringing business home. Over recent years, thousands of jobs were lost as some firms like banks and insurance companies moved call centres to countries like India to cut costs. But they were criticised for doing so. And now some are reversing their decision, bringing call centres and jobs back to the UK.
Good morning, thank you for calling Santander. You're speaking to Lucas in Leicester. May I take your name, please?
When Santander decided to move their call centres to India, they were bombarded with complaints by dissatisfied customers.
All right, OK, no problem. I'll have a look for you. OK, have you got the account number on you, please?
Now they've moved customer services back, much to the relief of staff here in Leicester.
So you were working here when there were still call centres in India. What difference has it made to your job bringing them back?
A huge difference. You know, every other day sometimes customers will say, you know, oh, I'm so glad to be through to a UK advisor.
Makes your job a lot easier.
It does, it does. It saves having to deal with complaints.
And you know, because you're at the sharp end in complaints.
That's right, yeah. I'm one of the people who's at the other end of the phone, getting the irate customer who's unhappy with the service. Maybe their queries hadn't been listened to, or maybe just not dealt with at all. And obviously the business decision was something that would cost more short term, because you know it costs more to employ UK advisors, but in the long run I do feel that it will have saved money, because you know the number of complaints will have dropped, the number of the amount of compensation we pay out will lower as a result of that, and generally speaking going forward I think it's a great move.
And the decision created hundreds of jobs.
Helen. Hello, Laura. It's really nice to meet you.
Hi, Laura. Nice to meet you too.
So how did you end up working here then?
Well, I was made redundant from my last job. I've been there for 14 years, and at that particular time, They outsourced their contact centres to overseas, and I was without work. And it was 2011, height of the recession. There was hardly any jobs out there, and Santander had this opening, and I came here.
So the opposite happened. So you were working in one call centre, those jobs went abroad, and then Santander brought them back?
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for your call today. Have a good day.
So why was the decision taken in the first place to move call centres abroad?
The decision was made quite a while ago. It was originally made in 2003, and at that time I would imagine there was a lot of factors that were considered into that decision, and one would have clearly been cost.
Even though it costs more to have call centres here than in India, was it worth it to bring them back?
Customers wanted a service where they spoke to people in the UK, and equally they wanted Santander as an employer to create jobs. So making the decision we did in 2011 created over 500 jobs in the UK.
Made in Liverpool and sold around the world, eh?
Back on his factory floor, Tony Caldera's hoping orders will start coming in thick and fast. Now he's switched much of his production back to the UK.
Made in Britain is not only important for the UK, but it's also important around the world. And a lot of our customers love the fact that we have a little tag on it saying Made in the UK. They associate that with quality, they associate it with fashion, they associate it with good design. And overall, they think that a British product is a good product, a quality product, a desirable product. Made in Britain sells, and it sells around the world.
Tony's cushions have caught the eye of one of America's biggest home textile retailers. They like the fact they're made in the UK. So he's flown across the Atlantic to see if he can clinch a deal, one that could create 20 jobs in Liverpool.
Here we are in New York City and going to a very big American textile retailer, and I'm hoping to do some more business with them. I've got mixed emotions today in terms of the meeting. I'm not quite sure what to expect. There's such a lot at stake here that I'm a little bit nervous, a little bit apprehensive, but also a bit excited as well, because if we can pull it off, then what a big thing for us back at home.
It's often tough for British companies to win work outside Europe. They face competition from right around the world. But Tony's feeling positive. If he does get the order, his next task will be to make sure they can deliver.
They really like our British-made product. It's a British product that's working, which means a lot to me. Of course, with them being the biggest home textile retailer in the world, we've got to be ready. We've got to be able to deliver for them. So we've got a lot of work still to do. We need to make sure that we don't let them down, because there's no point making such a fantastic opportunity and then not being able to deliver.
Despite the tentative success of companies like Tony's, there's a fear the recovery in manufacturing could stall because of a shortage of skilled workers. The UK needs thousands more graduates in science, technology and engineering, around 110,000 every year to fill all the jobs.
In the last 2 or 3 years, I think manufacturers have tried to do a lot more than they were in the past to make it more attractive, both to the youngsters, but perhaps importantly within the youngsters segment, to the females, to get more women coming into manufacturing, which is still a very, very small percentage. Most manufacturers I talk to at the moment would put skill shortages as their #1 challenge.
What are these guys doing?
So one of this line over here is one of our finishing lines. So the guys are inspecting the vehicle to make sure there's no imperfections on the body.
Recruiting new employees is even an issue for big companies like Jaguar Land Rover. They are trying to encourage more young people, particularly women, into the business.
The favourite bit is getting to drive the new cars I've worked on. So driving around the track at 150 is going to put a smile on anyone's face.
Rebecca Lee's an engineer in her 20s, is very much an exception to the rule.
You're unusual, being a female engineer. Does that make any difference?
For me personally, I don't really see it as much of a difference. I'd say when there has been a difference, it's always been a positive something for me happening, because people remember me for being a female engineer. So it's been a positive in my experience.
What does it mean to you to be part of a British brand?
For me personally, I'm really proud to say I work for Jaguar Land Rover. To have that on my CV is something that I'm very proud of.
Thousands more jobs could potentially be created, as the number of cars being made here is growing and growing fast. But a shortage of specialist skills like Rebecca's could throw a spanner in the works.
But there is a potential problem. I mean, you're short of skills and short of talent in this sector.
As a country, we need to develop more engineering graduates because the opportunities in this industry are great.
But what's the risk if we don't?
The risk is we don't take advantage of those opportunities because if we don't have enough engineers, we don't have enough young people coming into the industry, mean that you won't be able to entice more overseas investment and grow domestic suppliers. This in some ways is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, so we need to make the most of it.
And yet, making the most of world-class engineering is what British manufacturing does best. Every 20 seconds, a vehicle rolls off a UK production line. More than 80% are sold abroad to over 100 different countries.
Why are British-known car brands doing so well?
Because they have strength in terms of engineering quality, brand reputation, the iconic British names like Land Rover, Jaguar, like Mini, like Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin. These are brands which are known worldwide and loved worldwide. So that's a tremendous strength that the UK has, and one we want to keep and one we want to see grow.
Manufacturer Tony Caldera admits he too is struggling to find enough skilled workers to keep up with demand.
One of the potential downsides of us receiving some big orders in the new year is that actually finding staff, skilled staff, and sewing is a skill, can be quite tricky. I remember not long ago going into a community college where they were looking to actually train sewing machinists, and all the people in there, they didn't want to do the production jobs, they wanted to be designers, they wanted to be buyers, because a lot of people think it's not very sexy. They see Mike Baldwin's sweatshop on Coronation Street, and some people think, oh, that's not for me. And this is a problem that we're going to have to overcome. We're going to have to find ways and innovative solutions to get young people interested in manufacturing jobs.
Over in the canteen, Tony's machinists remember the good old days.
When I left school, they trained you up, and then after 6 weeks, you was like top of everything. Yeah. And then they put you on factory floor, and it was brilliant.
That's what they did with us, yeah. They were the good old
I was just made up when I left school because you had a job.
I know.
Yeah.
You could walk
Made up.
into any job though,
No.
then.
Yeah.
You can't now.
You could walk into any job, but you can't now.
If this upturn in British manufacturing is to become a long-term success story, we need not only to create enough jobs, but to ensure we have the right people to fill them. It won't be easy, but for now at least, those at the sharp end believe in Britain getting the job done in an increasingly tough global market.
The British factories that we work with deliver just such fantastic quality. We have had quality problems, but we just drive down the road or 100 miles up the road, and we know that by the time we've got there, the solution will probably already be presented to us by the factory.
It makes us feel very good that we've brought 15 jobs back to the north of England, and over the next 2 years, that will increase to 30 to 40 jobs.
For years, we've been getting our manufacturing and production from China and importing it to Britain, and we've not valued what we've got here on our own doorstep. And we're trying to make the most of that right now.
I really hope that this is the start of something really big, that the tide's turned and that lots of British jobs will be coming back in manufacturing.
A few more Union Jacks for your collection.
British manufacturers are very competitive and are becoming more creative. They're very entrepreneurial. They are some of the best manufacturers in the world. I'm an optimist and I think that we can do this. I think Britain can actually compete in 2014.
The government says it has invested millions of pounds in training and apprenticeships to boost the manufacturing workforce. Now, if you'd like more information on tonight's programme, please visit our website at itv.com/tonight. In the meantime, though, good evening and thanks for watching.
Coming up next week, Chris Choi explores the phenomenal rise of the e-cigarette. Some say they could save millions of lives, but officials are warning we know far too little about them. Can Charity and Declan actually run Rachel out of town? We're back to Emma Day.